by the state of Rhode Island, and he will look out for your best interests. Even if you have had an event that was up to a year and a half ago, Vern may be able to help you, so give him a call at 484-300-8495. Again, 484-300-8495. That's Vern Rainville, Public Insurance Adjuster. And of course, Compass Title and Escrow, the closing and title attorneys that we refer our clients to. Anthony Betancourt and his team do a great job taking care of our buyers and sellers on their residential real estate transactions. So, we've got some really great news. Go to my trusty website for mortgage rates, and dun, 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 a 30-year FHA mortgage today is at 5.98%. I can't remember the last time I saw a 5 for the mortgage rate on a 30-year mortgage. The 30-year VA, 6% even. A 30-year conventional fixed rate, 6.29. A 15-year fixed rate, 5.69. A 7.6 ARM, 5.68. A 30-year jumbo, 6.25. So, we have some really, these rates are a lot lower than they have been recently. So I would imagine that we're going to have a lot more buyers coming into the marketplace. So if you have been looking, get ready for more competition, because more people are going to be able to afford a house at a rate of 5.98% than they could at a 6.25% or 6.5%, which is where we were recently. So, buckle up because it's going to get very competitive once again. That's my prediction. The market, it's still been a seller's market, but it's been transitioning a little bit because the buyers' houses have been sitting on the market a little bit longer. Okay, and I say a little bit longer because it's still short compared to 15 years ago when houses could have been on the market for 12 months. Now they're on the market for a month and a half at the long side. But nevertheless, the changes that we're experiencing in the market mean you have to kind of pivot, tactically adjust the way you approach a transaction. And that's why it's important to work with a full-time, full-service, experienced realtor or realtor on a team, because you want someone that's going to understand the subtle changes in the market so that they can be leveraged to your advantage. Whether you're a buyer or a seller, you want to work with a realtor who understands the subtle changes in the market. Not a lot of realtors are aware of these changes, and that could be to your detriment, and you may not even know it. You may not even know it. You may not be aware that there are changes, or that something could have been done to get you into a better mortgage product that could have saved you some money, that was more appropriate or customized to your needs. Now, what do I mean by your needs? When we talk about the 30-year fixed rate of 6.29, that is for a straight up, okay, you've got a decent amount for a down payment, you get a regular paycheck from, you're a W-2 employee, and you're buying a home that you're going to live in that's a single family home. So that's kind of like the white bread, the vanilla, the medium vanilla version right there. But if you are looking to buy a property that maybe it's a multi-unit, maybe it's a condominium, maybe you don't have a good amount of money to put down for a deposit, for a down payment, so you need the low down payment option programs where you may have to pay PMI, private mortgage insurance. There are a lot of different products out there, mortgage products out there, that may more precisely benefit you because they're customized for your needs. Okay, there are what are called DSCR loans, debt service coverage ratio loans. Okay, if you're buying a property that has rental income. There are other products that are geared for folks who don't have any credit. Okay, let's say you're recent to the country, you don't have credit established here in the United States yet. There are other products that can be used to demonstrate your ability to pay a regular monthly payment. Um, those are special types of mortgages. If you're looking to buy something, and let's say you're self-employed, you're a 1099 employee, or you own your own company, you're a contractor, a painter, a landscaper, how do you pay yourself? Do you just take out money that's left over at the end of the month? Do you pay yourself with a paycheck every month, week, every other week, whatever? There are mortgage products out there that are available to suit your needs. But that's why it's important to work with, first of all, a local lender, but second of all, a lender who has a lot of options available for you. Okay, and I try to discourage folks from going with the big national institutions because they have a very limited amount of products to offer. Okay, whereas at one of the mortgage partners I work with, they have over 150 different products. Think about that, 150 different mortgage products. These are for residential, and we're not including, unique properties like mobile homes or commercial properties. These are just straight up residential properties. So that's a single family condominium up to, 4 units. So there are a lot of products out there that are available, but if you're not aware of them, or your realtor is not aware of them, they don't connect you with a local agent who's experienced, you may lose out. Maybe you're going to pay an interest rate that's a little higher than you should. Maybe your PMI payment, the private mortgage insurance payment, there are some times where, excuse me, sorry about that, there's a mortgage product that maybe the interest rate is a little bit higher, but if you look at how much your monthly payment is going to be, it may be a lower amount because there are other ways you can save money. For example, just like when you shop for car insurance or homeowners insurance, different companies, they'll quote you different premiums. Well, the same thing can be true for private mortgage insurance. You may get a quote from one company and it's $250 a month for your private mortgage insurance. But the same house, maybe with another company, you could get a price of $185 a month. That difference, what is it, $65 a month difference, now all of a sudden you can buy more house, or you can pay down, use the extra money to pay down the mortgage that much quicker, 65 bucks extra on your payment every month. So, work with someone that has a lot of different products, and don't be bashful, don't be timid about asking your lender or your realtor questions like, do they have a lot of products? Will you sit down and explain to me what all the numbers mean when you send me my settlement sheet? Okay, these are the types of things you want to be aware of, and these are the types of questions you want answered at the beginning of your home search. Okay. Incidentally, if you are just beginning your home search, and you really need to get yourself educated so that you can have the newest information about buying a home, awareness of what's going on with local lenders and local products that they have. We're having a first-time home buyer class. It's going to be at my office in North Providence next Tuesday evening. Okay. We'll start at 6 o'clock p.m. It's probably going to run for about an hour, hour and a half. It's being sponsored by Bank 5, a great local lender, one of the oldest banking institutions in the area. And Dave Campagnon is going to handle that for the bank side, talking about what they have. And then we're also going to have a financial advisor there. So there's going to be a lot, and of course I'll be there. So I'll talk about the real estate. Dave will talk about the financing aspect. The financial advisor, Elinol Buñols, she'll be talking about financing and why it's important for you to look at the big picture. When you're just starting out with, on the path of home ownership, you really should be factoring in how you're going to plan for your future. Because once you go down that path and you're hustling along and you're paying the bills, and then all of a sudden more bills come in because you want to do this to the house and do that. If you don't have incorporated in your monthly budget, putting that 25 bucks a week aside, or whatever the amount is, it's going to be tough to catch up. Okay, been there, done that. So what you want to do is you want to work it into your budget as soon as possible, and then you just forget about it. Remember, one of my accounting professors at BU always said, a dollar today is worth more than a dollar tomorrow because it can be invested. Okay? And the miracle of compounding interest. Okay? You invest a dollar today, you make a 10% return at the end of the year, you have $1.10. You get the same return the following year, and now guess what? You have more than an additional 10 cents. You have another 10, another whatever 10% is on $1.10, another 11 cents. So you want to try and have compounding interest working for you and not just against you. And that's why I always another reason why I tell people to throw a little bit extra money at your mortgage payment every month, even if it's just $50 a month or one extra payment per year, whatever you can handle. Because what that's going to do is, at the back end of the loan, instead of it being a 30-year loan, maybe now you'll pay it off in 27 years. Okay? Now that's 3 years of saving. If your payment's $2,000 a month, and you're 36 months times $2,000, that's a lot of money. You could dump that money, right into your retirement. Okay? So that's why try and throw a little extra money at your mortgage payment every month. Then of course it gets easier because presumably as you mature you can earn more money. So your income goes up, but you keep those bills the same, which is another reason why I try to discourage folks from using their homes as an ATM. Basically just take out another loan to get money out of the house. Now it's a great way to get, air quotes, tax-free money. Okay, because you buy a house for $300,000 and you put 10% down, so your mortgage is $270,000. The value of the house goes up, let's say 15% in 5 years. So now you have a house that's worth $345,000. Your mortgage was $270,000, so now you can refinance it, and that difference, let's say you refinance it to 80%, so you can take out an extra 20 grand. That 20 grand is cash in your pocket that's not taxed as income because it comes from a debt. What you should do is not use that money to buy a car or pay for a wedding or pay for a vacation. You should dump that money into something, stock, a mutual fund, something very stable, and then just forget about it. If you're taking the cash out, you want that cash to work for you. You don't want to take cash out of your house to spend it. Folks, if you're just tuning in, it's about 21 minutes past the hour. You're listening to the Joe Luca Real Estate Show right here on WNRI 99.9 on the FM dial, 1380 on the AM dial. And you can also catch us streaming on WNRI.com. That's streaming at WNRI.com. WNRI.com 24/7. You can check us out anytime you want. That's where we're always there. This show actually is rebroadcast every Saturday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So if you can't catch it on one Tuesday evening, tune in Saturdays at 1, and you will find that you'll be able to listen to the whole show there once again. So I wanted to talk about something else today because last Friday, I believe it was, President Trump signed the Privacy Protection Act into law. Now, this is really big because for those of you who have applied for a mortgage, received a mortgage, bought a house, you may notice that your mailbox is filled up with solicitations, okay, from contractors, insurance companies, all kinds of folks that are trying to sell you something. And even after you apply, you don't even have the mortgage yet, but after you applied, that information is given to other lenders. So now you have 5 other lenders calling you up trying to get your business. Well, no more. As of March 5th, 2026, that is going to be illegal. The act that the president signed into law protects your privacy. So the credit bureaus are no longer going to be allowed to sell that information. So today, if I apply for a mortgage, they can sell that information, and if, to anybody who wants to, who will pay for it. So if it's roofing companies, if it's siding companies, if it's contractors, whomever, other mortgage companies. Hey, Joe, look at us, look at us. We have really good mortgage rates. Don't go with that guy. Come with us. And I have had that happen to my clients where I have them working with a local lender and they receive a phone call from someone else, and that individual tries to, air quotes, steal them away from the lender that they were working with. Okay, that's going to be a thing of the past as of March 5th, 2026. So that is, really huge. Um, that was a big win. We, the National Association of Realtors, and our lobbyists, we worked hard to get everyone on board. That's something that had bipartisan support on both sides of the aisle, and thank goodness the president signed it into law. So it's one less, set of harassing phone calls that consumers have to deal with. I know I receive calls every day, and it's just because, I have a business and they call me up, they're texting me, hey Joe, we can, give you money to pay for your receivables or to do this or to that, no credit check required. And I'm like, listen, I'm a real estate agent. I make money when I sell houses. I don't have receivables. It's not like I make widgets and I have companies that owe me for the widgets that they purchased. I don't have anything like that. So I get those, and those are unsolicited, and I haven't applied for any credit anywhere. So that's something to bear in mind. That will not be an issue after March 5th of 2026. And this is, that's big news. Okay. The other big news, as I talked about a few minutes ago, is mortgage rates. Mortgage rates are below 6% for an FHA. That's really good. I've got a first-time home buyer, and when he first applied, the rates were a lot higher. And now he's really going to benefit because the rates are lower, so it's going to cost him less every month to get into his first house. All right, and that's what it's all about. I love what I do, helping home buyers, especially first-time home buyers, because it's such a big deal, to be able to, put your stake in the American dream as being a homeowner. But even helping folks, when they're transitioning for other reasons in their life, if it's, a marriage breakup, great, let's just end it here, let everybody, move on to new beginnings and put the unhappiness behind them, and now, search out for new happiness, whatever that, may entail. And the same thing, sometimes, kids grow up, move out of the house, or the parents need to downsize, or, one of the spouses passes away, or maybe, both do, and the house has to be just put up for sale because it's, there's no one to live in it. So it's a trust or an estate sale. If you know anyone who is in that situation, I've really developed quite an expertise in selling these types of houses, because that's been my bread and butter for listings this year. Give me a call, 401-409-5030. Again, it's Joe Luca, Luca, Realtor, 401-409-5030. You can also text me at that number, and I'll get right back to you and answer any questions that you have. And even if you're not ready to buy or sell a house right now, and you just have some kind of you want some basically free information, that's no problem. Give me a call, 401-409-5030. I have a lot of folks that's what I do. They seek information, and I continue to send you information just about the marketplace, about interest rates, housing, if there are any new trends. Just, not to be a pest, but just, to keep you in the loop. Okay? But if you have any questions about anything, if you saw a house that came on the market, or a house that sold, or you like this house, and how much would it be worth? How much? One of my listeners called me up the other day. I haven't gotten back in touch with her yet, but I left a message. She's wondering how much are houses selling for in this particular part of town. So we had previously talked, so I knew her address, and now we just have to connect, so I can ask her some questions and find out, if there were any changes made to her house, so I can give her a rough estimate for what the house is worth. But even if it's something like that, if you're listening or you're watching on YouTube and you have some questions about what your house would be worth, or what grandma's house would be worth, or the neighbor's house, There's no obligation, and questions are free and answers are free. Okay, there are very few things that are free, but my answers are free. You just have to give me a call or text me 401-409-5030. Again, 401-409-5030. That's Joe Luca, Luca. Um, yeah, I'm a realtor. That's what I do. I help folks. Folks, you're listening to the Joe Luca Real Estate Show right here on WNRI 99.9 FM, 1380 on the AM dial, and streaming at WNRI.com. You can also catch this show on YouTube. If you ever forget my phone number or are looking for a way to reach out to me, to connect with me, you can look for me on Facebook, Instagram, X, formerly Twitter, um, as well as TikTok and LinkedIn. Okay, those are the ones I'm most predominantly on, and then I also have YouTube channels. So, but you just have to search for Joe Luca, Luca, Realtor. That's Joe Luca Realtor, and you'll find me. It's pretty easy to find me. I try to be everywhere. Don't update social media as much as I should, but I try to put a lot of evergreen content on my YouTube page. If it's about accessory dwelling units, ADUs, we talk about those a lot in Rhode Island, and that's really something that we were at the forefront when we passed that law, and Massachusetts followed suit a year later. And I was out of town at a training last week, and I was talking to some folks from Missouri, and they were very interested in accessory dwelling units and our law, and how it was structured, because they don't have anything like that in she's in Kansas City, Missouri. So we have a lot of good things going for us in Rhode Island and Massachusetts. Sometimes we forget how fortunate we are, and because there are so many things that seem to be not so good going for us. You just read about all those drugs that they just confiscated, in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Connecticut. And it's like, good grief, there's that much. Who would have thought that that amount of drugs was on the streets in Connecticut, Mass, and New Hampshire? Okay, but thank goodness they've confiscated a lot of drugs and arrested a lot of bad guys, and hopefully that will reduce the chance that anyone we know will be impacted by methamphetamine, fentanyl, cocaine, whatever, because those drugs are really bad. They don't do anyone any good. So please stay away from those, and don't let anyone you care about get involved with those either. All right, so interest rates are down. We talked about the Privacy Protection Act that now has become law. I want to talk a little bit about something else. I hope it's not too granular. I hope it's not boring, but it's like multiple listing service. All right, I'm president-elect for the MLS in Rhode Island, and a lot of people, including my colleagues, realtors, are unaware that the Rhode Island Association of Realtors, or the Massachusetts Association of Realtors, or the Connecticut Association of Realtors is a separate entity from the MLS or MLSs in those states. So in Rhode Island we have one MLS, multiple listing service. It is an entirely different corporation than the Rhode Island Association of Realtors. They're in the same building, yes. They do interact with each other, but they're entirely separate entities, corporations. One is nonprofit, the Association of Realtors, and one is for-profit, the Multiple Listing Service. Massachusetts has several multiple listing services, as does Connecticut, and they each have one state association of realtors. So these are the things that sometimes make people get a little confused, because a lot of the data, the numbers part of real estate, okay, when you read, we'll talk about Rhode Island because it's easy because we have one MLS for the whole state. So when you're reading numbers, what the sales are, condominium sales, single family sales, multifamily sales, days on market, average price, the median price, okay, that data is provided by multiple listing service, okay, the multiple listing service. And that's because all the sales, all the listings go into MLS, And then when a property is listed for X and then it's sold for X plus 5 or X minus 5, that's tracked in multiple listing. They also track how many days it was on the market from when it was first listed to when it closed and when it, in between when it went under agreement. They also track who the listing agent and brokerage is and who the buyers or the seller's agent and the buyer's brokerage is. All of that information is tracked, price point, etc., type of financing. So whenever you're looking at numbers about sales, these numbers are usually generated, I say usually across the country, in Rhode Island definitely they're generated by the multiple listing service. Okay. Now, you take a state like California, I think they have over 100 MLSs, multiple listing services, because it's such a big state. Okay, and it covers a lot of geographical area and a lot of markets. You know, you take a city like Los Angeles or Los Angeles County, and you know, we have 39 municipalities in our little state, and you could kind of, I think if you're going to break it up, you could, you know, maybe do Aquidneck Island would be one, and then maybe, you know, Washington County, so like down near URI. But even, you know, westerly, that's kind of its own little market down there. That's separate than Narragansett. So we've got Aquidneck Island, you've got the, you know, greater Narragansett area, you've got the westerly area. Then if you've got like rural areas, you know, let's say we have a half a dozen, you know, different trade areas, different markets in Rhode Island. You take it, you know, Los Angeles County, they probably have, you know, 10 times that just in LA County, never mind the whole state. Okay, and they, you know, I always thought that Rhode Island was different. Oh, no one knows what it's like to sell real estate in Rhode Island because no one else does anything like we do here. It's, you know, where everything is backwards or this or that. Then I would go to national conferences and I'll be talking to someone from Los Angeles or someone from Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and like, jeepers, son of a gun, they go through the same problems with their clients as we do. Now, in LA, maybe the house that they're buying is 10 times as much money, but the issues that the client has and that the realtor has to deal with, the problems the realtor has to solve, because that's what a realtor does for the client, is we solve problems, they're the same. We're very similar. Okay? So, you know, that's why it's important to be aware that you have the numbers part of real estate, which is generated by the multiple listing service. Anything that has to do with numbers comes from multiple listing service. The Association of Realtors, okay, they provide, that's the part that makes, you have to be a realtor, you're a member of the Association of Realtors, you have to comply with the Code of Ethics, you have to, they generate all the forms for listing a property, okay, that is handled on that side of things. So it has to do with business ethics, and then the professionalism aspect, the interface between the consumer who's buying or selling a piece of real estate and the real estate professional, the realtor, who is their agent, okay, their designated client representative. So the Rhode Island Association of Realtors, the Massachusetts Association of Realtors, they handle that side of things. The MLSs, the multiple listing services, now again we have one in Rhode Island. There are several in Massachusetts, and sometimes they cooperate with each other, sometimes they don't. But they all handle the numbers part of it. Okay? And there is definitely a bifurcation. Now, was this always the case? Not really. You know, the company is up until very, very recently, there was a lot of overlap. You know, so you'd have staff that would handle work on one of the companies. It also helped out with the other one, even though they were employed by the other one. But in light of all the lawsuits that we had the past few years with the involvement by the Department of Justice, many associations in multiple listing services have really made an attempt to distance themselves, and I know that's what we have done here. You know, a couple of years ago, I was on the board of directors for both MLS and the Association of Realtors. I resigned from the Association of Realtors, and I'm dedicated to, to the multiple listing service. So that's who where my fidelity lies, okay? Because sometimes there are issues that could be more of a concern for one over the other. Okay, so now any decisions that I make in that regard are solely for the benefit of MLS. Okay, if I'm on the board of directors for RIAR, for the Association of Realtors, maybe that would be questionable, okay, and it would be definitely challenging if there was something that could benefit MLS but not benefit the state association. Okay, hopefully this is not too confusing and I'm not boring you, but I think it's important for people to understand that there is a difference. Okay, multiple listing service. Okay, here right now we're called statewide MLS. That's our business incorporated name. Most of the consumers you are familiar with RILiving.com. Okay, that is the consumer-facing version of multiple listing service. So real estate professionals who participate in MLS, what we see when we're on MLS looks very different than what the consumer sees on RILiving.com. Now, if you're working with a realtor and the realtor sends you listings, the information that you receive and the interface that you excuse me, that you have, that may be more like the actual MLS that agents see. Okay, but one of the other things that MLS does is we allow our agents, our brokerages, to participate in what's called Internet Data Exchange, IDX. That allows the data that's in our MLS to be sent out to Remax.com, Century21.com, KellerWilliams.com, Vinny'sRealEstate.com. It goes out to all of those internet sites. Okay. It also allows JoeLucaRealtor.com to have what's called a virtual office. So I can send out listings from my website that have all the information from MLS, but it has my branding. So you see my information. If it goes out directly from MLS, you'll still see my branding, but it also has a lot of the branding and the layout from MLS, which is good. I like our MLS much. I think it's far superior to MLS PIN, which is what a good portion of Massachusetts has. I like our functionality better. There are some things that they do better than us, but it's only one or two. I think we have a much better interface, and graphically it's more attractive. So, but yeah, so there's a big difference between MLS, and a lot of the data that you receive is from multiple listing service. Okay, the Association of Realtors, they do a lot of the lobbying. They have done the lobbying, historically with our legislators, and this past year we did not do very well. We really didn't experience a lot of success lobbying at the State House. We're very disappointed with the legislature. We were hoping that Speaker Shekarchi, who's been a great ally for homeowners, we felt that we were hopeful that he was going to continue in that vein, but this past year we were really let down. And then unfortunately the governor, he has been a huge disappointment, personally and then professionally. Anybody who's a homeowner, you should not be happy with his performance. They raised the tax rates over 60% on tax stamps. A 60% increase, one shot. Okay, he signed it into law. Now, maybe they could have overridden his veto, but it would have been nice if he vetoed that, because that would have made a lot of homeowners think, well, at least he's working for us and not against us. But the governor, he signed it right into law. Didn't say anything bad about it. Now, that may not sound like a lot, 60%, but it is a lot, because you're selling your house, and that's an amount that's calculated per $1,000. Okay, so the more you sell your house for, the higher that tax is going to be. And if you sell your house for more than $800,000, it's almost doubled again. So you're penalized for having a house that sells for a higher amount. So let's say you bought a house a few years ago for 400,000 bucks. You made some improvements, added some value. Now you go to sell it, and it's an $800,000 sale. So you're going to get, shellacked with a transfer tax. It's double the rate that it would have been if you sold your house for 600,000 bucks. Okay, so it's just it's another example of the state putting their hand in your pocket, and I think taking more than they're entitled to, because the state certainly didn't do anything to increase the value of your home. Okay, you maintained it, you paid for the debt service on the house, you put the down payment, you purchased it. That's everything that you did. The state has no part. And in fact, you could really make the case that the state has worked against homeowners, okay? Because they haven't done things to attract people here from other parts of, other environs to increase values even more, okay? Um, but anyway, that's a political gripe for another time. I don't want to waste too much time on that. But if you are thinking about getting ready to sell your home, or you want to start the process of getting pre-approved to buy a home, give me a call. We can have a short 2, 3, 4-minute conversation. I can direct you to the right people to talk to get you set up so that you can receive a mortgage approval. Not a pre-approval, an actual approval within days. Within days, okay? I've got some really great, aggressive, lender partners. And I'm looking forward to helping. As I said, next week we've got a program, a first-time buyer program, Tuesday evening at my office in North Providence, 1417 Douglas Avenue in North Providence. That's right across from Lowe's. 6 to probably about 7:30. First-time home buyer class. We're going to have a financial advisor there. We're going to have a great mortgage lender there, and Dave Campagnon, myself. And we're going to provide you with a lot of information, and we're going to answer any questions that you have about mortgages or about the home buying process, or with our financial advisor, any questions you may have about investing money as you mature, as your family grows. Okay, presumably, first-time home buyers are usually childless, but if you do have a child, it doesn't matter. We can answer any questions that you have there too. I've certainly had first-time home buyers who were well into their 50s when they purchased their home. It's never too late. Okay, and even if you're 65 years old, 70 years old, you can still apply for a 30-year mortgage, because they cannot discriminate against you because of your age. You just have to be able to demonstrate that you can repay the loan. So the challenge that a lot of folks have is they don't have enough income when they're older to pay back that mortgage. Okay, maybe people are just getting $3,000 a month in retirement, and so you're not going to be able to demonstrate you can pay back a $3,200 a month mortgage. Okay, so but nevertheless, we work with lenders who have a lot of different products. Maybe if you're buying something like that, maybe a reverse mortgage would be an option for you. Okay, and again, it depends on where you're looking, because yes, you can buy a home with a reverse mortgage. Okay, there are ways to do that. You can use a reverse mortgage on your current home to purchase a second home or a replacement home. There are a lot of different things that can be done. Okay, again, it's important to work with an experienced full-time realtor like yours truly, who can direct you to the right lenders to help you out with that. Okay, because not all lenders have mortgage products that suit all situations. But I work with lenders, my lender partners have literally hundreds of different mortgage products available. And after a short conversation, I can direct you to the best one, or to the one who would be best suited for your needs. Okay, folks, if you have any questions after the show, 401-409-5030. You can call or text that number, 401-409-5030, and I'll answer any questions you have. if you want to start educating yourself on the marketplace, and Joe, I think I'd like to buy a house in Burrville someday. This is great. I can just no pressure. Start sending you listings. So every time something comes on the market, every time something goes under agreement, you'll receive an email showing what it went under agreement for. When it's sold, I can show you what the house sold for. Oh, it's listed for 425 and it sold for 426. It sold for 410. It sold for 450. Okay. Some houses are still selling much higher than asking price. Many houses are selling for lower than asking price. Well, Joe, what's the difference? Well, what makes the difference is one, location. Okay. Two, the home. How much deferred maintenance does the home have, if any? Okay. If you have a house and you're trying to get top dollar for it, but it doesn't have central air conditioning, it doesn't have a modern kitchen, the bathrooms haven't been updated in 10, 20, 30, 40 years, that house is probably going to sell for at or below asking price. Now, unfortunately, many times people, they want to get maximum price for their home, so we're forced to list it a little higher than we would like to. But the market dictates what the value for the house is going to be. I was talking with a colleague of mine in the office the other day, and he has a client, and he had said, the house, Joe, he said it's almost a knockdown. That's how neglected this house is. In addition to that, it was a very peculiar house, and how you got to the second floor, and the refrigerator for the kitchen was on the landing of the stairs going up to the second floor because there wasn't room in the kitchen. So it's a very peculiar house. It does not have any open floor plan or modern flow at all. And there's like lots of termite damage or apparent termite damage, rotting wood along the ground, and the access to the house, there's an easement to go to another property nearby, and the homeowner is like, yeah, I want to get $300,000 for this house. And I'm like, jeepers crow, $300,000. It sounds like it should be like a $70,000 house, because you have to, maybe it's $150,000 for the land, but then you've got to knock the house down and remove all the debris. So now it's a $75,000, $80,000 house. But this seller, that's the number that this seller wants. So, and I said to my friend, I was like, jeepers, and everybody says that house prices are too high because realtors are greedy. And it's like, no, it's not the realtors, because we do what the sellers want. Now, our job is to get our client, the seller, the most money possible. So we look at the marketplace. What will the marketplace support for this 3-bedroom, 2.5-bathroom colonial? Okay, that's what we'll price it at. But sometimes that's not good enough for the seller. They want to squeeze a little harder and try and get an extra 10, 20, 30, 40,000 bucks on top of that. Maybe they can. And more than one out of four homes right now is being purchased for cash, and then another 1 out of 4 has a large deposit. So the ones with a large deposit and the ones being purchased for cash, maybe they'd be willing to pay more than the house would appraise for, because they have the extra cash to throw at it. But in this particular instance, I said to my friend, it's like, jeepers, even if you found a cash buyer, would they want to throw that kind of money into this house? I mean, you'd be much better off getting a small mortgage, buying a more expensive house, and then enjoying it, not having to do all that work, because it would be a little more expensive, but in much better condition. So if you're thinking about selling your house, of course, I would love to work with you. 401-409-5030. Call another realtor who is full-time and experienced in the marketplace, and he or she will answer questions. But this is what you have to do as the homeowner. It's very important that you ask questions, and then you listen to the answers and you respect the answers, because he or she is the real estate professional. He or she, I guarantee you, has transacted more real estate transactions than you. Okay? Even if the low side, and you have a realtor that only does 2 or 3 deals per year, and they've been in the business 3 years, that's 9 deals. How many houses have you purchased or sold in your entire life? Probably not 9. Okay, so listen to what he or she says, because if they're full time, because if you have another job, okay, you're not going to be able to be knee deep in what's going on in the real estate market. You're not going to be able to be knee deep in what buyers are looking for, and that's essential. But if you do choose to work with a full-time experienced realtor, listen to what they have to say. Respect their knowledge, respect his or her experience. Okay, and ask the question. Don't say I want. Well, yeah, I want $1 million. That doesn't mean I'm going to get it. Ask the realtor. Say, well, I understand you think it's worth X. What if we tried to get an extra $10,000, an extra $20,000? Would that hurt? Could we try and get a little bit more? And then he or she can have an answer. They'll provide you with an answer. Okay? So, folks, you are listening to the Joe Luca Real Estate Show right here on WNRI 99.9 FM, 1380 on the AM dial, and, of course, streaming at WNRI.com. We are here every Tuesday evening, 6 to 7 o'clock p.m., and we rebroadcast the show on Saturdays at 1 o'clock. I want to do a quick shout-out to our sponsors. Vern Rainville, licensed by the state of Rhode Island to be a public insurance adjuster. 484-300-8495. That's the number you have to call before you call your insurance company if you have a claim against your homeowner's policy. Vern Rainville, 484-300-8495. He will get back to you within 24 hours. And yes, he is a Rhode Island guy, even though that's not a 401 area code. Vern Rainville, 484-300-8495. Give him a call. I guarantee you, you will not be disappointed. And Compass Title and Escrow. Anthony Betancourt and his team do a great job ferreting all of our transactions through the pipeline so they get to the closing table with nary a surprise, and that's what we like. Okay, we don't like surprises in real estate, because whenever you come across a surprise in real estate, it's not good. Okay, it's always something that is either going to delay the closing, derail the closing, knock the buyer or seller out of their seat so they can't buy or sell the property. Surprises are never good. Okay, usually they derail, or not derail, they delay the closing. They don't derail it. Okay, but still, it's not good, because if you think you're going to be closing on a property on the 15th of the month, and then something pops up and you can't close until the 27th of the month, you already had your movers lined up. The place you're moving to is expecting you on the 15th. Now it's going to happen. You're buying the house. You have to move out of your current residence to move into the new one, but wait, we can't. We've got to get new movers. It's very problematic. Then if you have kids starting school, if it's that time of year, then everything just gets amped up even higher as far as the anxiety that the client is experiencing, and it's tough. So part of my job, part of the job of Compass Title and Escrow, and all good escrow companies, title and escrow companies, is to identify potentialities for things that could disrupt a smooth transaction from occurring. Okay, there's virtually never a totally smooth transaction, because we live in an imperfect world. Things happen. We have one transaction, the fire marshal, and we had to put in hardwired smokes. The electrician's doing everything he can. One of the tenants got COVID, so the electrician can't get into that unit, so it gets pushed out because of that. And then, oh wait, the fire marshal can't get in on that day. He's got to wait another day. So now all of a sudden we have a 2-week extension. No one did anything wrong. stuff happens, okay? But you try to stay ahead of these things. That's something that could never have been foreseen, that tenant was going to come down with COVID. These things are becoming less and less common now, the COVID-related issues, but nevertheless, they still happen. Okay, they still happen. So we try to keep everything good in the hood, moving right along, and hopefully closing as soon as possible. So we have a happy buyer and a happy seller. That's at the end of the day, that's what we like. We like happy buyers and happy sellers who receive maximum value for their transactions, so they can start anew in their new digs, their new residence. Folks, please stay tuned. We're coming up to the end of the show. I want you to stay tuned because Rick Murney is going to be here with the Old Time Preaching Ministry. He does a great job explaining Scripture so that you understand it. There are no questions. Okay, Scripture is God's Word, and it really is the kind of like the instruction book on how to live a happy, contented, and rich life. Okay, but all you have to do is you have to read the Bible. Okay, and if you're looking for some interpretation, some assistance, stay tuned because Rick Murney is going to be on. He's on every Tuesday evening right after the Joe Luca Real Estate Show, and I guarantee you that you will learn at least something, and probably a lot. Okay, so we'll be back next week, same bat time, same bat channel, right here, the Joe Luca Real Estate Show. Take care, and I hope you have a great week. And any questions, give me a call, 401-409-50